Anna Brooks, a 27-year-old nurse, sat at her own birthday dinner listening to her father, Mark, tell 40 guests that he wished she had never been born. The candles on her cake were still burning when the room went silent. Her stepmother, Susan, simply nodded as if agreeing with tomorrow's weather forecast. Her younger stepsister, Lily, lifted her phone and kept recording without even blinking. Anna did not shout or cry, even though the words cut deeper than anything she had ever heard. Instead, she stood very still and watched the people who claimed to be her family look away from her. That moment stayed inside her for months, sitting heavy like a stone she could not put down. Mark had always been a man who filled every room with his voice and expected others to move around him. She grew up watching him control holidays, conversations, and decisions with a quiet authority no one challenged. Her mother, Grace, died when Anna was only 7, and the house never felt like home again. Even as a child, she sensed her father blamed her for the loss he never learned to face. He didn't say it then, but she felt it in everything he did not do. Mark did not come to her school plays, and he never hung her drawings on the fridge. When she got sick in 4th grade, it was her grandmother Grace who drove across town to pick her up, whispering, "My girl, you are always safe with me." Grace was the only person who made Anna feel like she belonged anywhere. When Grace passed away 2 years earlier, Anna kept reaching for her phone out of habit, wanting to call the one person who had ever stood between her and loneliness. Losing her felt like losing the last light in her father's house. After Grace's death, Susan stepped deeper into the family center, bringing her daughter Lily, a loud, carefree girl 4 years younger than Anna, into Mark's spotlight. Very quickly, Lily became the favorite in every room. Anna was moved to the smallest bedroom, and her mother's photos were quietly replaced by Susan's. Still young and trying to keep the peace, Anna swallowed the changes without protest. She kept telling herself that families adjust, that time can soften edges, but the distance between her and Mark only grew deeper with every year that passed. By the time Anna turned 25, she was working exhausting hospital shifts while Mark claimed he could not find another job after losing his last one. When the mortgage notice arrived, he slid it onto the counter like a chore someone else should handle. Susan looked at Anna during dinner and said, "Someone responsible should take care of that." Without arguing, Anna paid it. Then she paid the electric bill, the water, the insurance, and every debt the house carried. She set everything on autopay, promising herself it was temporary, not knowing it would drain her for years. For nearly 3 years, Anna's paycheck silently carried the entire weight of the house. Each month, $1,000 went to the mortgage, another portion to utilities, and anything left over covered repairs Susan insisted were urgent. She kept working double shifts, often coming home too tired to speak. Yet every time she looked at her bank app and watched her balance shrink, she reminded herself of her grandmother's last words, "Keep the family together, my girl." Anna believed loyalty could fix things. She believed effort could change people. But the truth was beginning to show in small, painful cracks. The cracks widened the day she noticed a designer handbag charge on her credit card, one Susan claimed Lily needed for her engagement photos. Anna had never even known Lily was engaged. When she asked Mark about the purchase, he dismissed her with 4 sharp words, "She's your sister, Anna." She wasn't, not by blood, but correcting him had never made a difference. Instead, Anna felt a cold ache settle inside her as she realized her savings were being treated like a family bank. And the people withdrawing from it felt no gratitude, only entitlement. 3 nights before her birthday, Anna returned home from a 14-hour shift and saw a light shining under the kitchen door. She paused on the stairs when she heard hushed voices, voices that sounded rehearsed and careful. Susan spoke first, saying, "We'll announce it at her birthday. If she refuses in front of everyone, she'll look selfish." Mark replied in a slow, steady tone, "If she makes a scene, we finally cut her off." Anna pressed her back to the wall as the truth hit her. They weren't asking for her help with Lily's wedding. They were planning to take her savings. She trembled as she climbed the stairs to her small bedroom, still wearing her damp scrubs. Sitting on the edge of her bed, she stared at the ceiling and replayed every moment she had stayed silent for the sake of peace. She remembered every holiday shift she worked to build those savings, every meal she skipped to stretch her budget, every dream she delayed so others could live comfortably. That night, something inside her shifted, not loudly, not with anger, but with clarity. She realized she had become the only adult in a house full of people who expected her to serve them. And for the first time she wondered what would happen if she stopped. The next morning, Anna sat in her car outside the hospital and made a call she had avoided for 2 years. Helen Porter, her grandmother's old attorney, answered on the second ring and greeted her as if she had been expecting this moment. "Your grandmother left things she wanted you to know," Helen said gently. "Are you ready to hear them?" Anna exhaled slowly, feeling both fear and relief wash through her. "Yes," she said. "I think I'm finally ready." She arranged an appointment for the week after her birthday, unaware that her entire life was about to change. That same afternoon, Lily found Anna in the kitchen and held up her hand with a smile, showing off a diamond ring Anna had never seen before. "You're going to help with my wedding, right?" she said, as if the answer had already been agreed on. "Dad says you've saved a lot." Anna looked at the ring, then at Lily's bright, unbothered expression, and felt something inside her settle into place. Lily wasn't being cruel. She simply believed Anna's money existed for her convenience. "We'll talk later," Anna said quietly. For the first time she meant something different. Over the next day, memories returned with sharp edges, like the scholarship letter Mark had hidden when Anna was 18. She had won full tuition, a life-changing opportunity, but she never saw the envelope until a teacher mentioned it 2 years later. Anna still remembered the shock of finding the open letter in Mark's desk drawer. When she confronted him, he simply said, "You weren't ready. You would have failed." She had worked nights as a waitress to pay for school, carrying exhaustion like a second skin. Now she understood that every step forward she made, Mark found a way to hold her back. In the Brooks family, Mark's word had always shaped the truth. As the oldest brother, he controlled the family narrative, deciding who was generous, who was difficult, and who deserved sympathy. His younger brother, Roy, was the only one who ever challenged him. 5 years earlier, Roy had gently said at Thanksgiving, "Mark, you're too hard on that girl." Mark didn't argue, he simply stopped inviting Roy to anything after that. Within months, Roy vanished from family events like he'd never existed at all, teaching Anna something painful. In this family, silence was survival and truth carried consequences. 2 days before the dinner, Anna overheard Susan on speakerphone calling relatives with a carefully rehearsed script. "Anna has been difficult," she told Aunt Megan, then repeated the same story to cousins and old family friends. "Mark gives and gives, but she refuses to help Lily." Each call was a seed planted so that by Saturday, everyone would arrive already believing Anna was selfish. When Anna's phone rang and Aunt Megan asked, "Honey, what's going on?" "Your father says you're giving them a hard time," she felt her heart sink. The trial had already taken place. The verdict had already been spoken. The night before her birthday, Anna stood in front of the bathroom mirror, studying the tired face staring back at her. Her dark circles told the story of a 56-hour workweek, and her hair was tied back in a knot she'd stopped caring about. She could hear Susan's voice through the wall saying, "Some kids just aren't grateful," followed by Mark adding, "I've given her everything." Anna pressed her palms against the counter, fighting the urge to break down. She remembered her grandmother's words, "Quiet strength, my girl. Let them shout. You keep standing." That reminder became the anchor she held on to. On Saturday evening, Anna arrived at Rossini's, the Italian restaurant Mark had reserved for her birthday. She wore the only nice dress she owned, a simple navy blue one that made her feel quietly confident. For a moment, as she stepped into the warm, candlelit room, she allowed herself to believe the celebration might truly be for her. But then she noticed the seating arrangement. Mark, Susan, Lily, and Lily's fiancé, Jason, sat at the main table under the banner, with one extra chair reserved for Mark's old friend. Anna's name card sat alone at a small table near the kitchen door. Despite the sting, Anna sat at her assigned seat with her back straight and her expression calm. Guests hugged her politely but drifted toward Lily the moment compliments about the engagement began. When Mark stood with a microphone and said, "Tonight is special not just because of Anna's birthday," Anna felt her chest tighten. Then he announced Lily's engagement, and the room erupted with applause. For 10 long minutes no one looked her way. The cake with her name on it sat untouched at the table's edge, its candles still waiting for someone to care. When the excitement settled, Mark kept the microphone and motioned for Anna to come forward. Her heels clicked softly on the floor as she approached the main table. He placed a hand on her shoulder and addressed the crowd, saying, "Family takes care of family, and Anna has been very responsible with her finances." Anna felt the pressure of his hand instructing her to agree. Susan dabbed her eyes with a napkin and whispered, "It's what your mother would have wanted." The room softened and Anna felt her mother's memory twisted into a tool she never asked for. Mark's voice grew firmer as he continued speaking to the room. "Now that Lily's big day is coming, we all need to contribute, and Anna will be helping with the wedding budget." The crowd murmured as eyes shifted toward her, waiting for her response. Anna kept her voice steady and said, "This is my birthday dinner. Can we not do this here?" Mark shook his head and raised his volume just enough. "You always say later, Anna. You never step up when it matters." The room held still, every fork and glass frozen in midair. With 40 eyes watching, Anna felt Lily's phone recording her once again. Mark stepped closer, face tight with irritation, and said, "Now if you can't do this one thing for your family," she cut in softly, "I'm not giving away my savings, Dad. That money is for my future." A single sharp inhale traveled through the room. Mark stopped, stared at her for a few seconds, and then delivered the sentence that would change everything. He looked at his daughter and said, "I wish you were never born," as calmly as if reading a grocery list. The room froze so completely Anna could hear dishes clinking in the kitchen behind the wall. No one gasped, no one stood, and no one defended her. Susan looked at Mark and nodded once as if agreeing with a truth finally spoken aloud. Lily's hand trembled while keeping her phone pointed at Anna, the small red recording dot glowing like an accusation. Jason pushed his chair back a little, creating space between himself and the family he was about to marry into. Inside Anna's chest something cracked, not loudly but deeply, like ice breaking underwater. Anna looked at each face in the room, hoping to find even one person willing to say, "That's not right." But all she saw were lowered eyes and tightened jaws. She gently folded her napkin, placed it on the table, and said, "Thank you all for coming to my birthday." Her voice didn't waver, even though her heart felt heavy with 27 years of disappointment. She picked up her small bag and walked toward the exit without rushing. The moment the door closed behind her, the cold night air felt like freedom she had forgotten existed. In the parking lot, Anna sat inside her car and gripped the steering wheel until her hands stopped shaking. She breathed deeply, the same way she coached anxious patients during emergencies at the hospital. When she finally picked up her phone, she dialed the only person who could guide her through what came next. Helen Porter answered after one ring, her voice calm and sure as if she had been expecting this night. "I want to come in tomorrow," Anna said. Helen replied, "Then everything will be ready for you at 9 in the morning." Anna packed before dawn, moving through the silent house with practiced steps that avoided the creaky stair. She filled one suitcase and one duffel bag, only things that truly belonged to her. Her nursing license, a few clothes, and a framed photo of Grace from a long-ago county fair. At the kitchen table, she opened her laptop and transferred her entire savings into a new bank account. Then she canceled the supplementary credit card Susan and Lily used as if it were their own. Before leaving, she placed one unsealed envelope on the counter and walked out without looking back. Inside the envelope were 4 years of bank statements, each page showing the thousands she had paid toward the mortgage, utilities, taxes, and insurance, totaling $96,000. No note. No explanation. Just numbers that told the truth better than she ever could. She drove away before anyone woke up, heading toward a sunrise she hadn't seen in years because she was always working early shifts. She moved into a small studio apartment across town, only 400 square feet, but the first place she could finally call hers. And for the first time in her adult life, she felt unburdened. Back at the old house, the morning unfolded exactly as Anna expected. Susan came downstairs first, saw the envelope, and casually pushed it aside to make coffee. When she climbed the stairs to wake Anna out of habit, she discovered the empty room and the bare mattress. "She actually left," she said, almost amused. Mark shrugged and said, "Let her sulk. She'll be back by Friday." He turned on the television, unaware that the financial structure he depended on had vanished overnight. Lily discovered the truth next when her card was declined while ordering a dress online. She walked into the living room, phone in hand, saying, "Dad, something's wrong with my card." "Did Anna do something?" Mark barely looked up, muttering, "She's being dramatic. Ignore it." But by Monday afternoon he had called Anna 4 times and received nothing but voicemail. He told relatives she was overreacting about the birthday thing. He didn't realize the problem was much bigger than feelings. It was the mortgage, the bills, and the truth waiting in an envelope he hadn't opened. On day 7, a letter from the bank arrived. Mortgage overdue. Mark tore it open and read Anna's name printed at the top as the legal account holder. Confused and irritated, he called the electric company next, only to hear, "I'm sorry, sir, but we can only discuss the account with the registered owner, Anna Brooks." A slow worry started growing in his stomach. Susan finally opened the envelope on the counter, revealing years of statements showing Anna's payments. Her face went pale as she realized the truth. They had lived in that house completely on Anna's income. And she was gone. Mark searched the filing cabinet for proof of ownership, pulling out old tax returns, insurance forms, and pay stubs. But there was nothing tying the house to his name. Not a deed, not a single legal document. That was when Susan remembered Anna mentioning something about her grandmother's attorney. They both stared at the highlighted numbers in the envelope, unable to explain away $96,000. Mark tried to take control of the story, calling relatives to claim Anna was punishing them. But some family members remembered that night at the restaurant and what he had said. His version suddenly didn't hold as much power. A week later, Mark called a family meeting at the community center beside their church. About 30 relatives came, sitting in gray folding chairs under buzzing lights. Mark stood at the front and gave a long speech about Anna abandoning the family and causing financial chaos. Susan sniffled loudly in the first row, and Lily looked uncomfortable with her phone face down for once. Then Uncle Roy stood from the back and asked, "Mark, did you invite Helen Porter?" Mark frowned in confusion. At that exact moment, the side door opened, and Helen stepped inside holding a leather portfolio. Helen walked to the front of the room with calm, steady steps. She introduced herself as the estate attorney for Grace Brooks and laid a clear plastic sleeve on the table. Inside was the deed to the house, legally transferred to Anna 2 years before Grace passed. "Mr. Brooks," Helen said, adjusting her glasses, "your name has never been on this property." A quiet shock moved through the room. Susan stood abruptly, insisting, "That can't be right. We've lived there for years." But Helen replied gently, "You lived there because Anna allowed it." Helen then spread out the bank statements in neat rows, each one highlighted. She read aloud the totals. Mortgage paid entirely by Anna, utilities covered by Anna, insurance and taxes all handled by Anna, adding up to $96,000. The room fell into a heavy silence as relatives absorbed the truth. Aunt Megan whispered, "She paid everything?" And Roy nodded firmly. When Mark tried to reclaim control by saying, "This is a family misunderstanding," no one moved to support him. Even Lily looked shaken, seeing the evidence laid out like undeniable math. For the first time in years, Mark had no audience willing to nod along. Roy stood again and said, "A father doesn't speak to his child the way you spoke to Anna." Aunt Megan wiped her eyes and added, "Especially not the child who paid for his home." Relatives murmured their agreement, shifting away from Mark and Susan. Lily quietly whispered, "I didn't know. I didn't know it was this bad." Helen closed her portfolio and said, "My work here is done." She left the room with the same calm she entered, leaving truth behind like a mirror everyone was forced to look into. 2 days later, Helen sent a formal 60-day notice for Mark and Susan to vacate the house. That evening, Mark called Anna 17 times. The first several calls were full of anger and demands, insisting she fix the mess. But later voicemails shifted into desperation, then into quiet fear about having nowhere to go. Anna listened once, saved only the last message, and went to work her shift as usual. She did not feel triumphant. She felt relieved, as if she had finally set down a burden she'd carried since childhood. Lily called next, crying about the wedding falling apart and their family breaking. Anna listened calmly and asked, "Did you watch the video you recorded that night?" Lily went silent because she knew exactly what video Anna meant. The moment Mark said he wished Anna had never been born. "I'm not punishing you," Anna said softly. "I'm just choosing myself for once." Later that week, Jason called to apologize for staying silent at the restaurant. "You deserved someone to speak up," he said. It was the first time Anna felt truly seen by anyone from that night. 3 months later, Anna settled fully into her small apartment with thin walls and slow hot water. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers, and every bill came from her own effort, not stolen from her peace. She still worked long shifts, but her savings slowly grew again, untouched by anyone else's demands. Roy visited on Sundays, bringing coffee and quiet company. Holidays were no longer heavy, they were peaceful. And Anna finally understood that leaving wasn't revenge, it was survival, and the beginning of the life Grace always wanted her to claim.